Welcome to Afros and Audio's Black History Month interview series. My name is Talib Jasir, founder and CEO of Afros and Audio Podcast Festival and the Vanguard Podcast Network. I'm excited to spotlight 29 outstanding indie podcast creatives and professionals who answered the call to be a part of this series. My guest today is Cassandre Dunbar. Welcome and thank you for being here. How are you?
I'm good. Thanks for having me.
I'm so glad that you are here. Thank you for being here. So I'm going to start with my first question, Cassandre. Can you share with us what initially drew you to the world of wellness, particularly focusing on Black women's health and well-being?
Sure. So I went to medical school, and while I was in medical school, what drew me to medical school was I had my mom was always sick when I was a kid. She had all types of stuff going on, and I found myself in the doctor's office with her a lot. So fast forward to like high school and think about what you want to be when you grow up. I was just like, well, honestly, I want to do hair. And she's just like, no. Try something else. So I'm like, well, I guess I'll go to school for biology because that's my favorite subject outside of like possibly doing some hair. So biology went great. I loved my school undergrad, and biology was a thing that I really enjoyed. So after I graduated from college, I wasn't sure what to do. I know I didn't want to be in the lab. I liked people. So I'm like, you know what, let me try my hand and study for the MCAT and see if I can get into medical school. Fast forward, went to medical school. Medical school was eye-opening. Medicine is not what I thought it would be, especially when treating populations like ours. And so fast forward, throughout my last year in medical school, I got pregnant with my first son. And something about being pregnant made me think about everything that goes into my body and made me think about, okay, I've always been healthy, but have I always been well? And I was just like, not really. So I started like researching about what does it mean to be well and not just healthy. And as I was doing my research, I just could not find enough of us in the wellness space. So fast forward again, because life happens, time happens, and I decided to launch a podcast speaking to wellness.
Well, that's quite a journey. And you made it sound so quick and easy, but I know that it was not.
Right? Not at all.
As I look through Twitter today and I see more and more stories that always come out about the health and the wellness, especially of Black women, and how it's ignored. This understanding that there is this huge disparity in being respected, being heard, and being treated accordingly is an ongoing topic these days.
Yeah.
So you mentioned your podcast, so we're going to go right into that. What was the moment or experience that inspired you to start the Be Well Sis podcast, and how did you envision it impacting the conversation around wellness for Black women?
Oh, honestly, I finally decided to go ahead and launch the podcast after I was encouraged to do so by my therapist, because at the time I was going through terrible postpartum depression and anxiety, and I was burnt out, but I didn't really know it. I just thought, okay, it's just hard being a parent to 2 kids now and doing all the things. And she's just like, girl, you are not taking care of yourself. So I had mentioned years prior, starting a podcast to talk about things that impact Black women, but just never did anything about it. So while I was like in the thick of burnout, she's like, you know what? I want you to set aside an hour a day doing something that you love. And I'm just like, I don't know what I love. And she's just like, okay, so maybe how about the podcast you talked about? She's flipping through her notes. She's like, how the podcast? And I'm just like, okay. So I know nothing about podcasting. So I'm just like, all right, an hour a day, we'll get it done. So in that time, I started just finding women who have incredible stories or who are experts in their field, and they were willing to speak to me. So I spent an hour a day for months just finding women and having conversations with them. And then I eventually had to figure out all the other stuff that comes with podcasting. And I took it in stride because I was like, you know what? I am going to be, for the first time in my life, I'm going to go into this as a baby, as a newbie. And I'm not going to study all the ins and outs of podcasting. I am just going to figure it out as I go. The first episode is probably going to be trash, but it's okay. I want to just get better. So it's been a challenge to me. And the reason I chose podcasting is because while I was out of medical school and in my first few years of work, I used to always have an ear pod in, and I had discovered the medium of podcasting. So I was learning about finances because my finances were in like shambles. So I'm like, this is a great way to teach people. Most people have a phone that has podcasting apps on it. So I want to disperse free information. And the best way to do that is going to be through a podcast. And that is what led me to launch Be Well Sis.
That's an awesome story. And learning as you go is such a great way to put it, right? And a great way to approach things. People often stop before they start worrying about how they're going to get it done, right?
Yep.
And so it's something that, as a life coach, I'm always encouraging. You're going to learn as you go.
Mm-hmm.
Like, just make that your baseline and start.
Yep.
Right.
Yep.
So that's great. And so did you always kind of understand, because what season are you in right now with Be Well Sis?
Honestly, I stopped doing seasons because they were stressing me out. So I'm about to be in year 4. So we launched in 2020. Mm-hmm.
Okay. And so how has even Be Well Sis changed? I know you started out as an interview podcast. Did your formatting change? Did your length of your podcast change? What changed from start to today?
Mm-hmm. So I would say before it was 100% interview format. And I realized because I was hiding myself, and my friends who are in the podcasting, especially, it's like, people are not tuning in necessarily for the people you interview. Like, that might be a plus, but they have, they have rapport with you now, so they want to know more about you. So as time has progressed, I've shared more about myself, and I've had solo episodes as well. Recently, as in last year, I decided to add an additional day. Usually it's just a once a week podcast, and now it is twice a week. And because on Fridays, I call it Feel Good Fridays, because not podcasting, but the wellness conversations that we have sometimes are heavy, right? Because healing and talking about hard things about like our health and family relationships, it could be a lot. But I'm like, how can I bring some levity to the podcast? So I decided to add Feel Good Fridays on Fridays, which are just shorter episodes that are my take on like maybe pop culture as it relates to wellness, or just my thoughts that are short, sweet, and hopefully motivational, just to bring some levity to the show and for my listeners as well, who might be experiencing tougher things. So that's one thing. And then in terms of the length, my length still is not consistent. Like, some people have a 30-minute show or a 60-minute show. Mine is between 30 and 55 minutes, depending on the episode that we're having. So I've been trying to tighten up in that end, but I'm still not where I want it to be. So those have been the changes that I've made, I guess, in the past almost 4 years now.
That's great, because you are making it, I guess, fun again in a way for yourself. Even, it's one of those things that we can create for our audience, but we can also be thinking about ourselves, right? And prioritizing what we need out of it as well. So that's really cool. And the length is, I love that you are in a space where it's 30 to 50 minutes, because to me, that says you are allowing whatever the conversation is to be what it will be, right? Instead of working to limit it in any kind of ways. There's the formula, but then there's also the art.
Right, for sure.
Your art is great. All right. So as your podcast caters to Black millennial women, mostly, how do you tell your content to resonate with this audience specifically? And what feedback have you received that has been particularly impactful?
I think you said it earlier. You just said that, I make things that I can relate to as well. One thing that I realized is that last year I was kind of hitting a wall and kind of burning out with creating the podcast. And I had to take off the creator ears and put on the audience ears. I'm just like, okay, well, I'm getting kind of bored. So what can I do to, because I'm a Black millennial woman, how can I make this show for me again? Because essentially I am my target audience. So if I'm not engaged and entertained and really enjoying the episode, I can bet that my audience isn't either. So those are some things that I look at is really pretty much creating for myself. It might sound crazy and selfish, but it's the truth. And the other thing is, I really tap into my audience. The audience that I have, I really value their feedback. So I know, for example, the episode that I released today was about mother wounds. And for me, it was so timely and I really enjoyed the conversation. And I posted about it on Instagram and I got a couple of DMs already about, oh, it was so timely for them too. So that just like motivates me and lets me know that I'm going in the right direction in terms of like the guests that I'm curating and things like that. So I really rely on audience feedback and interaction to know, does this work for you guys or no? And this year I told myself that I'm going to be even more vocal in asking for their input, just because I could be enjoying it, but you're not, or you're not benefiting from it. So what's the point? Because I'm creating this, even though I am my target, I am creating it for an audience. And I want to make sure that this is in line with what they currently are needing.
Yeah. And I think that's awesome. And congratulations, first of all, for being in your 4th year. Like, that's a big deal. We can't play that it's not a big deal. And the fact that you are willing to find different ways to sustain this for yourself, right? Pod fade happens when you stop being curious about the opportunity, right? And what you're doing. And it's always that thing. And you are running a podcast that's educating, right? Educating, entertaining people. But it's almost like that school kind of conversation, especially when you're a Black teacher, a Black medical professional. It's like you're when you walk away from it, you close the door on the people who still need you in a lot of ways, right? And so to be willing to just figure out ways and to make this still work for you and for your audience is really special. So congratulations for that.
Thank you.
Yeah. That doesn't happen often. That's why we have pod fade and people leaving after the first season, you know?
Yeah.
Even with the work that's involved, like you said, you learned as you went. A lot of people are like, oh, I didn't know this part. And I'm like,
Oh man, listen, it was a rude awakening. I'm like, let me get myself a little mic, plug it into my laptop. Boom, I got a podcast. Absolutely not. Like the work starts after the interview.
Right. Absolutely. A lot of work happens after the interview. So you mentioned in the submission that podcasting has allowed you to come out of your shell, and you spoke about this a little bit, and connect with people and experiences. Can you share anything specific, any instance or conversation that was transformative for you?
Oh, yes. So the thought that comes to mind immediately has been this past summer, I had a conversation with Dr. Joy of Therapy for Black Girls. So I'm not sure how, but I'm really grateful that I'm on the radar of a book publisher. So when they have authors or books coming out that seem to align with my audience, the PR people will reach out to me. So the PR people reached out to me to first just read Sisterhood Heals by Dr. Joy of Therapy for Black Girls. And then I was just like, this is good. I'm going to read it. But also, can I have her on the show? And it ended up that she was on the show. So Therapy for Black Girls was one of the first podcasts that I had started listening to. And it was so poignant because it was at a time where I was considering therapy, but I was like doing it closeted because I was able to get free therapy through in med school. But I didn't tell anybody. I'm just like, no, maybe it's not for Black people to go to therapy. And then I stumbled upon her podcast. I was like, oh, we really doing this. Okay. Made me feel more comfortable. So fast forward to this past summer, in my not interview, but my pre-interview conversation, I always have to give my guests their flowers because every guest that I have on, I really appreciate what they've done for the world, or I appreciate them in some way. And as I was giving her flowers, I got choked up and started to cry. And that's not like me. I am not a crier. And I confused myself and I threw myself off because I'm just like, dang, I guess I didn't realize how much she had meant to me. And I was like, this is something that I would not have been able to do had it not been for podcasting. I was also able to speak to Rachel Cargill this summer, in ahead of her book release as well. And again, these are people that I have admired their work for years, and podcasting allowed me to actually speak to them. And then I've also made friends. I'm an introvert, so I've made a ton of friends in the podcasting space. Of course, specifically Black podcast creators. I have never met people who are so warm and welcoming and genuinely want us all to win before ever. Most of the fields that I've ever been in, whether it's academia or healthcare, it's very cutthroat. People do not want to share information. It's really disgusting. And it's just been such a 180. It's like the complete opposite in the friends and relationships that I've made in the podcasting space. So it's just opened up my world so much. And now I feel more comfortable that I'm not weird and maybe I'm not an introvert. It's just I haven't found my people, and now I'm finding my people.
That's awesome. Yeah, I mean, that sounds like a full circle moment in a lot of ways. And podcasting and anything that we do, there's expansion inside of it, right? You don't know who you're going to meet. You don't know what opportunity is going to come your way until you're in it.
Yeah,
You know?
for sure.
Yeah. So that's awesome. I'm really glad that it's unfolded in this way for you. And, again, it's a testament to you being willing to be in the space, show up for yourself and others, and not go away. That's important. So,
Trying not
yeah,
to.
please don't. You're doing a great job. So, surpassing 430,000 downloads, major. That's awesome. Congratulations. And publishing over 100 episodes. They're significant milestones. Can you delve into what these achievements have meant to you and how they have shaped the direction of the podcast, if at all?
Oh, I didn't realize I had surpassed 100 downloads until I was writing the submission. I was just like, dang, this is a lot, not downloads, but a lot of episodes. There's a lot of episodes, and those are the ones that have been published. And I was like, this is the first thing that has actually been a hobby that stuck for me. I remember way back, even when I was applying to medical school and then applying for residency, I hated the question, what are your hobbies? I'm just like, y'all got hobbies? I'm studying and fighting for my life. Like, what you mean hobbies? And this is the first time I can say I have hobbies or a hobby, and I really enjoy it, and I'm very dedicated to it. And in terms of the downloads, it just kind of affirms that what I'm creating is something that people want. Yeah, so that's all I'll say there.
It is a big deal and well deserved for sure. And 100 episodes is a lot. I did 100 days of content one time on like Instagram. I was like, why didn't y'all tell me 100 days is a lot? It's a lot of days.
Ooh.
Yeah, it's
Yes,
it's a lot.
It's a lot of work.
Is this going to be over at any point? So yeah, it's a big deal. Here's to your next 100 episodes. So based on the journey, what key piece of advice would you give to podcast hosts, audio professionals, and others in the podcasting community, especially those who are just starting out?
Just start and get better as you go. So the first iteration may not be exactly perfection to your ears, and you may actually cringe. I cringed at the sound of my voice for so long, but I just kept putting it out. And some of the my audio still isn't great. Like, it's not perfect. It's just me. But the goal is to get better and better and better. You don't have to be an expert. You just have to have a vision, stick to the vision, and everything will work out. And in the beginning, if you are a podcast creator and you're not getting the downloads that you want, it is okay. And celebrate the ones that you do have. I remember when I put up my trailer, I had like 14 listens on the first day, and I was just like, 14 people listen. Like, I was excited. So just build on that. And when you start to gain an audience, just tap into them. These are people who are invested in whatever you're creating because it brings them something, whether it's information or entertainment or whatever. They're invested, so tap into them. But just start.
Absolutely. Just start. That's what we want to see. The work is so important. Our voices, our perspectives, our stories. It's all important to continue to lay it down right here.
Yeah.
So, besides podcasting, you also offer integrative wellness coaching services. How do these services complement your podcast, and what unique perspectives do you bring?
So, the integrative coaching services are pretty much for a person, usually a woman, who has health and wellness goals as well as life goals, and I help put them together. I use my background in medicine to help fill some gaps. What I find a lot of times is we're either on two spectrums. Either we are experts at what's going on with our health and wellness, especially if we have been diagnosed with a specific condition. Like either we know that thing in and out, or we really aren't sure and we're just taking their word for it, them being the medical professionals. I believe we need to be closer to the expert part, especially about ourselves. And I help make things very clear and plain for you, as well as help you advocate for yourself when you are engaging with medical professionals, and also help you create a lifestyle that takes your health and your wellness into consideration. That is your foundation for moving forward. Yeah, so those are the things that I offer. And then we also started a book club because I speak to authors so much and because those episodes seem to do even better than usual. I started a book club called the Be Well Sis Book Club, which is the book club is for busy women who are looking to read more Black authors who are limited on time and want community. You don't have to be an academic. You don't have to be an expert. We're not critiquing these books. We're just taking books that might coincide with healing and read it together, chit chat about it, hopefully have the author come and talk to us about it. It's very simple, straight to the point, because I know everybody's time is limited.
That's awesome. Do you plan on recording the book club at all?
So that's something that I'm toying with. I'm trying to figure out a way to do so that doesn't cause me more stress and anxiety. Because in full transparency, one of the things that I'm working on this year is being very timely with my episode releases. So I'm just not sure if adding another thing to produce makes sense right now. So the goal for this year is to hire somebody to edit all of the video and the audio. So if that happens, for sure, I'm going to record the book club.
Awesome. And great timing and understanding that, maybe it's time to hire some help and support.
Yes.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah. That's a part of sustainability.
Yes. Yeah.
Good decision. What are your future goals for Be Well Sis? Is there projects or you want to let the audience know to look forward to?
Yes. So the main thing that I'm really wanting people to join is the book club right now. Because again, the goal is to eventually have somebody come work with me full time to edit the podcast. So the book club is hosted on Patreon right now. So it is $10 a month, and all of the everything that we get from there, the profit is going to go to hiring somebody. So that is one thing that I'm really pushing and really hoping really gets larger throughout the year. And the other thing is last year I hosted my first in-person event, and it was just a really dope experience, and they want more. So I would like to have 3 more events. One definitely in my city. I live in Charlotte at the moment. And then we will see where else people are interested in meeting in person and having wellness-based events and community that just makes sense. So the next step would be just community in person. Right now we're a virtual community, and that's dope, but like in person also is important.
So how can people find you, podcast, sign up for the book club, all that stuff?
All right. So I am on Instagram is the platform that I mainly am on. And on Instagram, I am at BeWellSis_podcast. The Be Well Sis podcast is found on all podcast streaming network platforms. We are also now on YouTube, not every single episode, but a lot of the episodes are also, if you like to watch the interviews you can there. It's also Be Well Sis. And the book club is on patreon.com/Be Well Sis. And then if you would like to just know what's going on in the Be Well space, you can visit the website, which is bewellsis.com. And then at the bottom of the website, you can sign up for our newsletter. I do not spam. I email you maybe twice a month, if that. And hopefully it's all information that is pertinent and that is helpful to you in some way.
All right, that's awesome. Well, Cassandre, it's been great talking to you. This is the first time where we've actually got to sit down and connect and get to understand more about you and the podcast. You spoke Afros in Audio, and I heard such great things with you in that panel that you did. This is a great opportunity for me to get to know more about the people in our community, but also for the people to know what great podcasts are out here in these spaces. And Be Well Sis is one of them, for sure. So thank you again for being here. I really appreciate it.
Thank you. And thank you for having me. And thank you for all that you do for us in our community. I think Afros in Audio is dope and is just so needed. And so thank you for all the work that you do. I can imagine how much it takes to produce such a thing. And you've done it consistently year after year. So thank you.
Thank you. I really appreciate that. I really do. It's a lot, but we get all right. So again, thanks to our Afros in Audio and Black Association members for supporting our commitment for community and collaboration. If you'd like to join the Black Podcasters Association, the link will be in the description. If you want to join us at the 6th annual Afros in Audio Podcast Festival, visit afrosinaudio.com. Follow Afros in Audio on all social media channels, and you can follow me at Talib Jasir on Instagram. So thanks again, Cassandre, for being a part of Afros in Audio's Black History Month interview series.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
Thank you.